Hello, my name is Mirjam Knörnschild, and for today's Bat Advent Calendar, I'm going to present a paper by Peter Estok, Sandor Cebok, and Björn Siemers. It's called Great Tits: Search for, Capture, Kill, and Eat Hibernating Bats. It's not a very festive topic, but I think a fascinating one. So it turns out that great tits, small passerine birds, are not so cute and fluffy after all. In fact, there are numerous reports that they regularly attack and kill songbirds. Often they only consume the brains of their prey, and they reach the brains by opening the throat of the killed bird, as you can see in the lower picture, and then reaching the brain from there. And great tits not only kill fellow passerine birds, they also kill small mammals, such as this vole. The study I'm talking about has been conducted in a cave in Hungary, and the cave has a very large and well-lit entrance, as you can see in this picture, and two species of bats are regularly found hibernating in the cave entrance. The bat species hibernating in this cave are Pipistrellus pipistrellus, the common pipistrelle bat, and Nyctalus noctula, the greater noctule bat. And predation of great tits on bats in this cave has been observed sporadically and anecdotally since 1995. And in the study I'm presenting to you, the authors observed the behavior of great tits in this cave entrance in 2 winters for 22 days in total, and they found that predation events are really something that is common there. So in these 22 days, they observed 18 predation events directly, and they found additionally 8 bat carcasses on the cave floor that had very clear peck marks on them. And when the researchers supplemented the great tits with food at the cave entrance, the predation rates dropped significantly. So the great tits were apparently really exploiting the hibernating bats as a food source. The highest predation rate ever observed in this study was 3 kills in 35 minutes. So bat predation by great tits is something that is really common and occurring regularly in this cave. In these pictures, you see what is left of the bats when the great tits are done with them. So sometimes the birds only eat the snout and the face of the bats, as you see in the first picture, and sometimes they also consume part of the musculature, as you can see in the second picture, or even inner organs and brain, as you can see in the third picture. A typical predation event occurred like this. A great tit would enter the cave, fly slowly at close distance to the cave walls and ceiling, and repeatedly land and sometimes even vanish into a crevice for a few seconds to retrieve a bat. And the captured bats were then consumed either directly on the cave floor, as you can see in this video, or they were carried outside and consumed outside of the cave. But how do the great tits locate the hibernating bats? I mean, these bats are in hibernation, so they do not fly around or move a lot. So how do the great tits find them on the cave walls and ceiling? Turns out that the great tits use calls of bats when they wake up as a clue for homing in on them. So in these 2 spectrograms, you see examples of vocalizations from pipistrelle bats that are at the moment waking up from hibernation. And I will show you results of a playback experiment in a few seconds that demonstrates that these great tits use these calls to locate the bats. The calls of awakening pipistrelle bats are around 800 milliseconds long and have a frequency as low as 3.9 kilohertz, meaning they are well in the hearing range of passerine birds and can be detected by great tits. To demonstrate that pipistrelle calls reliably attract great tits and serve as a clue for these predation events, the authors conducted playback experiments in which they broadcasted pipistrelle calls through a speaker outside the cave entrance and observed the response of the great tits in the area. In total, they conducted 27 playbacks, and in 18 of these 27, the pipistrelle calls elicited a response. So the great tits were orienting towards the speaker and also approaching it. And in 9 playbacks, the pipistrelle calls did not elicit a response. And since this was a natural situation, normally more than one bird was present during a playback trial. So a maximum number of 8 birds was listening to any given playback. And when you count not the number of playbacks, but the number of individual birds subjected to these playbacks, it turns out that 45 out of 56 great tits responded with phonotaxis to the broadcasted pipistrelle calls, meaning that they approached the speaker. So this playback experiment clearly demonstrates that the calls of awakening bats can be exploited by great tits to locate the bats in the cave. What we can learn from this cool study is that great tits rightfully earned their place in the club of bat-eating birds, and some members of this club are fairly obvious, like raptors or egrets, while others are a surprise, at least to me. So I would have not suspected hornbills or toucans, two predominantly frugivorous birds, to feed on bats, but they do, as you can see in the pictures here on the left. And also insectivorous birds like bee eaters occasionally eat bats as well. And now we know that great tits do that as well. And for me, that proves a long-held suspicion that most birds are evil. And with this, I wish you a very Merry Christmas.